Here's a look at the MD-87 wing, and this is the right wing panel, and it's actually taped to a flat shelf board, and I'm going to use this in order to cut the slots out for the wing. And what I have to do is, first off, I have a carbon fiber tube that's going to be going in the outer wing panel right here, and you can see the slot that's marked for it. And this is just going to do some reinforcing for the outer panel. And then I have this slot here, which will be cut out, and this will be actually the trailing edge of the wing, and of course it'll go out in that direction. Aileron would be from here to here, flap is from here all the way to here, and then of course I'll have flap from here to about right in here. I have a rear tube which is 3/8 aluminum, and that's going to be recessed in this area here with a carbon fiber tube which will join the two tubes together. So whenever this is finished, the wing will split here, so I'll have an outer section, and then this section here will stay glued to the fuselage. Also, this large tube here, that will be a piece of cardboard tube, and it will have a tube inside of it. Also on the front, I have a .440 aluminum tube that will also have a carbon fiber rod in it, and it will be split here. So this will be able to pull off, and the wingspan will be much less, so I have no issues with transportation of the fuselage. The other thing, the center section here, there's another aspect of this that has to be taken into account, and that is with regards to the wing itself. The wing will have positive angle of attack, so therefore once I get these cut and glue in the tube, then I will cut this off, and then this part can be removed. Then I need to glue the center section together, both halves, because they have to be elevated so that the main spar can be cut. So this has to be done in 2 stages. I've tried to figure out a way I could do it in one, and it's just not possible because of the way that the wing is going to be put together. So I'm having to do it in 2 stages. So that's a look at what I'm going to be doing, and now let's get busy doing it. Here's a look at the cardboard tube that I'm going to be using for the joining tube, and then I have a wing tube that actually fits in there really well. So I'm going to be using this, and to use the cardboard, what I'm doing right now is taking some thin CA and just coating the outside of the cardboard to stiffen it up and to make it a little more durable. So I'm just coating this with thin CA. Just put a little bit at a time, and then work it in with a piece of plastic. Just like you see here. Also, the other thing that I've done is I actually ran some thin CA inside the tube on both ends, and then whenever I cut it, I will also run a little bit thin CA on the inside of the tube as well. Not necessarily all the way down, but just on the ends, and then that'll keep the tube from fraying out. I've hot glued this down so it's not going to be moving. I also have it taped to the board to ensure that the wing stays flat during the cut. I have all the cuts programmed. I had to do them manually just because of the complexity of the layout here. I'm going to be cutting a pocket for the front tube, and then also a pocket for the rear tube, as well as a pocket for a spar wheel that's going to be put in the top. Also, it's going to cut off the edge here, the mating surface of the center section, as well as cut the trailing edge. And it will be cutting it in a way that the trailing edge will actually be glued right to that. Now it's going to do this all while this is setting on this fixture. I do have a piece of foam sacrificial so that I'm not going to be cutting into the board that's on the bottom. I'm cutting at 14,000 RPM and I'm ready to start the cut. Here's a look at the various cuts that I've programmed in the machine. This software allows you to watch the cut not only at the machine but also at the software. Now as this makes its final pass, one thing you have to realize and keep in mind is that this tube here, the one that's being cut, and this tube here must be on the same plane in order for this to work. Now you can see the machine stop. I can blow out the cavity there. Okay, let's go ahead and do the trowel fit here. So we'll take this tube and put it in place and mash it down, and it should go below. And it does, and it's actually pretty tight, and that's what I want. It's not really tight. It goes in and out, but it's exactly the fit that I'm looking for, because when I put these two halves together, I want that tube to be tight in such a way that it self-aligns the two panels. They will come back together exactly the way they're glued right now. So with this done, let's go ahead and make the next cut, which I believe is going to be this far here. Now one thing, you might notice that, well, you're off with your tube where you had your tube. Well, this is like a preliminary place. All these lines were just preliminary to give me a rough idea of where they needed to go. And then once I got in the program and started laying them out for the cut, I've repositioned some of them slightly to give them a little better advantage in that where they were located before wasn't the ideal spot for them. So I've shifted things around just a little bit, not much, but just a little bit, but you'll see what I mean here in a little bit. So now we're going to come over and cut the carbon slot, which is going to be this slot here. And you notice it's moved back slightly. And it was moved back. It was shifted back because I thought it was a little close to the spar there. So that's why that was shifted back. And then the reason that the front tube was shifted back some was to give a little more distance from the leading edge, but more importantly, it moved the tube back to the fatter section of the wing. So that's why that is. Notice the washout. Remember, I cut washout in the trailing edge of the wing, so it's touching here, and then it goes up greater as it gets out toward the tip. Whenever this code finishes, then I will stop and we'll do a test fit of that spar to make sure it's at the proper depth. Notice also on this spar, I only shifted that end of it. I did not shift this end. Okay, it's finished, and now I have not cut this to length, so you can see it's a little longer than it needs to be. But right now I just want to test fit to be sure that the spar goes in, and it does. And that's exactly what I want there. I want a nice snug fit, and looks like we are deep enough. If we come down here, you can see that if I put it in, it's below the line, and that's exactly where I want to be with it. So it's a nice snug fit, and it's exactly what I want. So now we'll go on to the next cut. The next cut's this trailing edge tube. I'm going to shift things around just a little bit. Now notice the tube comes all the way up, and the reason that it comes all the way up is because I wanted the tube to be caught into that spar there. And notice it stopped short here, and it's because it's going to run into the trailing edge, so there's no reason to go ahead and cut all the way down this area here. So I basically shifted the spar forward. Okay, and now for this, the rear tube, I have a couple of pieces of short tube, but I will put them in just to check the fit, because that's all we're after. And you can see that the tube will actually recess down into the seam, and it's below the surface, and that's exactly what I want. Also, you'll push this all the way down. I'll be pushing this all the way down so that it bottoms out, because this plane here would be straight with this plane, and now these would actually pull apart. So I can leave that and go on to the next cut. Okay, the next cut's going to be the center section. And this is basically going to cut it off where the two halves are going to join. And I don't have enough cut length of the bit, so it's not going to be cutting it all the way through. And to ensure the trailing edge is straight, I have it supported here. Like it's going to be able to make one more pass, and then I'm out of this bit. Now I could have lowered the bit in this area here because it's so far away, but I decided not to, so that I had this edge all the way down, so this piece here is not dangling. You can see it's just barely going to clear up here. Done. The next cut's going to be the trailing edge. So we're going to cut it off up to here, and then the bit's going to go up, and then we're going to cut the center section. But for right now, we'll just do the trailing edge. We're going to check and make sure everything is going to clear. There's no pocket here, it's just going to be cutting it straight off. Okay, now we're cutting almost all the way through. Notice whenever it stops up here, it's going to stop right at the tube. It's not going to cut into my tube. That was the plan anyway. Yep, now it's going to skip over the tube, and we're going to go ahead and continue making the cut. look at the wing just off the CNC machine. A couple of things that I need to do before I continue, and that is, first off, this little bit of excess that I did not cut all the way through because my bit was not long enough, I'm going to take a hacksaw blade and go ahead and saw this off. So this will be removed because it's no longer needed. Also, the gap in between the two pieces of foam here, go ahead and take the hacksaw blade and cut the foam, but not cut into my tube yet, or this tube here. Then what I'll do is go ahead and place the tubes, but I want to cut them right in the center, so I'll have about 1/8 of an inch of tube sticking out this side and 1/8 inch sticking out this side. So whenever I put the end caps on, those tubes will actually stick through the end cap. And then once I glue everything up, then I can use thin CA and glue the end cap to the wing tube, or the end caps to the aluminum tubes, which are here and here. One thing about tubing and using wing tubes, if you have multiple tubes, you have to remember that they need to run parallel. You could have 15 tubes in this wing as long as they all run parallel. They can be on different levels, but they must run parallel. Now the trailing edge is going to be wood from here to here, and then this here will be a separate panel, and so this piece here will be wood from here all the way to this point here. Now what's unique about this setup is that the trailing edge is going to be made of balsa, and this pocket was left sized just for the 3/8. So you can see that goes in there. Okay, and it's a nice snug fit. It's not real tight, but it's not loose either. You notice it's not going to fall out of there. So the point here is, that's why this tongue was created. And then back here, this tongue here is the same way. However, this piece of foam will be removed because wood is going to go from this point down to this point, and then this piece of foam will become a piece of wood, and we'll glue this piece of wood to this piece of wood with this glue joint right here. So that will add some structural strength at this joint. If I just butted it to here and butted the other one to here, this would be a weak point, which this piece of carbon is going to help carry that load, but for the weight of one little piece of wood from here to here, I'm going to pick up a lot of strength. The leading edge is a aluminum tube that goes almost all the way to the tip and comes all the way, it'll come all the way up to here, but again it'll be split here. There will be a piece of carbon thick wall tube that'll go inside of here. So this wing design uses 3 tubes, piece of carbon up front, piece of carbon in the back, and aluminum tube and a cardboard sleeve in the center. You can see that this is cut on an angle, and this tube here will be cut on an angle, as well as the one that goes in the front. So they'll all be sticking out, and they will actually stick into the end cap, which will be 1/8 inch plywood. So if I go ahead and stick on the pieces so that you can see how this is going to slide together. Now what I can do is go ahead and slide these tubes together. Notice how all of them interchanged. They all went together really well. And now you can see how this is actually sliding. It comes all the way down. And again, the gap that I have in here is going to be filled with an 1/8 inch on either side. So what I have here is going to be the outer panel, and then I can pull it off. The tubes will come out, and now I have only this at the fuselage, and of course I could remove the tubes, and now here are the wing tubes. And now the only thing that I have to work out is going to be how I'm going to keep this slid into and held in place during the flight. I'm still contemplating, trying to figure out how I'm going to do that. I want to make it simple, and so you can look forward to that being in a future update. So that's a look at the wing, and I hope that I've given you enough information so that you understand where I'm at and how the wing is actually going to be constructed.